So I appreciate you watching, and at the end of this video there'll be a time lapse of the tabletop build. So I hope you enjoy.
So what we're going to work on today is actually turning this piece of plywood, this 4x8 piece of plywood, into a table. The structural framework underneath will make sure that the table is really sturdy. And in a few minutes I'll show you, I'm actually going to notch all these so that they actually interlock with each other versus just nailing this together like this. In the middle, so all these joints that where the cross is at, these are going to get notched. This top one will get notched up halfway and the bottom will get notched up halfway, and they'll actually lay over each other. So now if each of these touch the board, and they're all sitting down, we should just be able to mark them with the pencil and go cut and router them. At least that's my hope. Need some gentle persuasion. Okay. Time to put some plywood on, I think. So this is the side that I'm going to screw the sheet of plywood to. And in order to make sure that that plywood is nice and flat, I don't have any weird bumps and woes and wows in it, I got my level out here, and I'm using my level to check across both ways, this way, and then again this way, for high spots. And when I was checking this area, I realized this board specifically was very high in comparison to the rest. So you can see that by this, obviously. And it's that way all the way across. So I've got my hand planer out here, well, a power hand planer. And I'm going to plane this down until I get it nice and flat all the way across. So I've gone through and I used my planer like you were seeing there, and I've planed up all the high spots, all the transitions between where any of the boards cross. You can kind of see maybe the lighter spots in the wood where I had planed down this pretty good here, and then this again, right? But this is now, shouldn't have any wows or woes in, so when I screw it down, when I screw the plywood down, I shouldn't have any major issues. should go together pretty well. So I'm going to bring that plywood over here and screw it down. It's kind of where we're at. Okay, looks pretty good. Looks like I shouldn't have any issues, and I'm really happy. It seems to be really pretty square, and it holds shape really well, so I haven't had to bump it around really at all. I mean, I'm going to have to tap a little bit here. What I'm going to do is actually go down one side, put a couple of screws in this one board to make sure it's just perfect, and then I'll bump those corners and get that area aligned, and I'll screw that side down. We're a little out of whack down here, so I'm going to see if I can get some clamps to pull that baby over. Tell you what, I love these quick D-wall quick clamps. See, I had to use 3, but I was able to shift the top of that board over there, and now we're lined up perfectly, right down that edge. Beautiful. Check that out. Yeah, I'm gonna grab my router and actually relieve this edge right now, so that when I flip it, I don't screw my hand up on it. So I've got my router up with my round over bit with the bearing on there. But what I'm gonna do first is use my fault planer or hand planer. It has this little groove in the bottom that allows me to relieve this edge. It just takes some of the meat out, so I don't have as much material to remove with the router. Don't do that. That was a bonehead move. I was irritated because it kept on plugging itself and I was not patient enough to move the freaking thing. And I plugged it in even though I knew it was on. Don't do that. So, I have rounded off all the edges to make it a little nicer to touch and hold on to. So you're not hurting yourself when you're grabbing a hold of it. My plan is to use these clamps, or this style of clamp, right, these quick clamps, to hold stuff down to half of this table. I plan on doing that by putting holes in specific places on the table, right, to allow the clamps to slide through the table and actually clamp to the structure underneath. So I put this little jig together, this little, just a T squared screwed together, and I can line it up. You probably can't see it, but I actually snapped some really light lines. I lined them up with the boards underneath and I snapped lines. So if I line the center of this board up and the center of this board up with the lines, that gives me what would be the structure underneath. This clamp would slide down through, and then it would slide, this structure would be there. There was to slide over, and I could clamp something to the table above. I only am looking to do this on half the table for now, and leave the other half completely blank. To see how well this works and to see how much I actually use it, I I've seen a couple different designs online about it. I think it should be pretty functional, but I don't want to do it to the whole table and find out that I don't use it very often, or that the holes in the table have become a problem. That's actually my biggest concern, is that the holes in the table would be a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out a couple of these and go from there. So I did a practice one, but what I ended up doing was making a template, which is this, with this hole in it. This hole represents where the clamp will go through. And I made this template out of a piece of plywood that will reach all of the areas that I need a router. So I can do this one, from here and here, and that one, and then I can flip the board over and do the ones over here and here up this side. So I'm going to go ahead and start on this, and you'll kind of get the idea of how it's going to go. Well, there's half the table. To give you an idea of what I'm doing here. So I have a piece of plywood underneath here which won't be there eventually, but for the purposes of the demo, I'm going to clamp in the hole, and I can clamp the workpiece down on the table. Take the clamp out of the hole. Good, bad, and different, don't know yet. It'll be interesting to see how much I utilize this part of the table. I suspect I'll end up using it quite a bit for the cabinets, if I had to guess. But only time will tell.
So this is wrapping up the top of the table. This previous video you've been watching, I used my time-lapse camera to take some footage of. I set my time-lapse up to take a picture about every 5 seconds or so. This was the first time I had used my time-lapse camera for a small project. It had been sitting up in a tree to make the time-lapse video of the garage build, but I got it out and I turned it on for this, and it's turned out pretty well. So in a couple of seconds you'll get to watch the time-lapse of my tabletop build, and the second video will be covering the legs and the shelf underneath. So I hope you enjoy, and I appreciate you watching.